Good morning, everybody. Good morning, heat pump friends. Good morning, members of the EHPA, and good morning, interested colleagues from the energy world. I am so happy to see you all here, and this is not just a saying. It's so true because 6 months ago, we stood in this place and we said, let's have an event here, but maybe we can't. But it felt so right to have such an event, and that makes me super happy to be here on this stage this morning, welcoming all of you. And I have to say, we have come a long way. 18 months ago, I left Brussels from the last professional meeting, coming from Paris, from the French Heat Pump Association's annual convention, and then it was not clear what would be ahead of us. 6 months ago, as I said, we were standing here discussing if we can have a real event, and now I see a lot of happy faces. And I think you're as happy as me that we can have real events again. It feels a little bit like coming home, jumping into the water, swimming again, and I think you can still do it. I didn't find my tie when I prepared for the trip here. I don't know where it is really, but I think it's also not the time for ties yet for everybody, so I took the freedom not to buy a new one. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for making this real. I have to say a big applause goes to the team. If you see what they have put up here, this is the most professional event we ever had. On the other hand, it's probably the smallest we ever had. But this is not a contradiction because my personal belief is that we will have events in the future that are always hybrid. Our message applies to the whole world. It for sure applies to Europe, but I think it applies to the whole world. So recording it and disseminating it after an event will become as important as having the event itself. The bonus that all of you get is the personal contact with people that are really interested and make the effort to travel here. And I also want to thank the board for giving the trust that they said, okay, you can do it. And of course, the sponsors who really agreed not to get the money back if all this had failed. So I have to say it put us in a very comfortable situation also from an economic perspective. EHPA itself has also come a long way. 21 years ago, a group of crazy people, you could say at that time, founded an association. And I have a surprise guest for you to talk about that in a bit more detail in a minute. Today, heat pumps are acknowledged as a technology that is using renewable energy, is contributing to energy efficiency, is significantly reducing CO2 emissions from heating and cooling processes, maybe the best technology that we have available, and provides grid support and also jobs. Many factories have been built over the past 2-3 years in Europe to provide the number of products, the number of units that we need to decarbonize Europe's building sector and industry. On the political level, we have achieved full acknowledgement. The IEA says by 2050 we need 1.8 billion heat pumps. The European Commission has put a forecast out that says 50 million heat pumps by 2030. Mind you, that means a factor 4 increase of today's heat pump stock. And I think I don't need to explain to you that this is really a challenge. 15% growth per year is an unprecedented growth rate for any industry. And that means we have to work even harder than we have worked so far. And we need to talk to policymakers because ambition is one thing. Bringing action to the ground is another one. Increasing the adoption rate will be the key challenge of what I would say the next 5 to 10 years. And we have finalized our work plan for next year. This will be in the focus. I can say today, heat pumps are everywhere. They are in fridges, in dishwashers, in dryers, in large and small residential applications, in industrial processes, and in district heating. They're either there as pure heat pumps or as hybrid solutions. And if we combine these two options, then we can provide heating technology for all buildings and most industrial processes in Europe. All these topics will be covered at today's event. I'm even more happy to say that we have a program that is outstanding. I'm looking forward to it myself, despite the fact that I think I know a lot about heat pumps already, but I will learn something, and I think the same is true for all of you. What we need to focus on, and we will talk about that little by little, is a rebalancing of the energy taxation, the introduction of a CO2 price. We need support measures for poor households. That's absolutely clear, because we can't leave them sitting there just because the technology is too expensive, but we also need advice for all. A heat pump is by no means an easy solution. I talked to Marek yesterday and he said we have to iPhoneize the product. It has to be as simple as buying a car or buying an iPhone to decide in favor of a heat pump, and I think that's what we are up to. We will talk about this question of how do we position the product. Is it even the product that needs to be sold, or is it the service? At the end of today's event, we have an interesting session around that, apart from all the other interesting sessions. But let's start. There's a lot to do. We have come a long way, but we have to go even further. So, without further ado, I will hand over to the founder, or one of the founders of the European Heat Pump Association. Let me introduce an engineer, a visionary, an energy geek par excellence, Dr. Rainer Meyer. If we can have him on screen, here we go. He was actually partly responsible also for having me in this position, but he was quite forward-looking in 2020 when he had founded Ceotech in the United Kingdom, and apparently he had the idea that this was not enough and there needed to be an association for an until then unknown technology. Rainer, good morning. What made you think? Yeah. What made you think that we need a heat pump association not only for the UK but also on the European level?
Well, that's a very interesting question, Thomas. As a result of the Kyoto Protocol in 1997, the EU looked for energy efficiency technologies that could reduce CO2 emissions. And in 1998, I was asked by the DG Energy to set up a group of experts to decide how heat pumps could help to reduce CO2 emissions and increase energy efficiency. I brought together 10 engineers from Northern, Southern, and Eastern Europe, and we reviewed the status of the technology both here in Europe and the United States. And we made 23 recommendations, most of which have now been implemented. However, the one that concerns us and the greatest interest is we recommended that a European Heat Pump Association should be formed for not only the sharing of knowledge, but also the diffusion of knowledge. What heat pumps could do, how they could be installed, how they could make heating more efficient. And of course, what we have 21 years later is a thriving association.
Well, that was really very forward-looking and visionary, I dare say. Today we have 148 members. And by the way, Rainer is also an honorary member to the association for his good ideas, but also I think for him being always on top of things. I had a meeting with him before this call, and it's a delight to talk to him for his forward-looking perspective still. So what would you say, Rainer, what do we need to do now? After 21 years, we could say, have we achieved everything, or is there some more things that we need to do in your perspective?
No, there is a lot more that needs to be done, and the reason why it needs to be done and is not generally understood by policymakers is when you change your energy vector from gas to electricity, it creates a series of problems, not necessarily with the heat pumps, but with the supply of energy. All of a sudden, the gas demand goes down and the electricity demand goes up. And so the question is not so much can we afford to install heat pumps, but what do we need to do to the electricity supply in order to be able to provide the energy, the electricity to energize the heat pumps. What is interesting is that while I was chair of the European Heat Pump Association, we were approached by Eurelectric. Eurelectric is the association of European electrical utilities based in Brussels, and we helped them develop a report called Electricity Generation in a Carbon-Constrained World. And the outcome of this report, published in 2007, was that the industry, the electrical industry, generation industry, recognized two new loads that the industry would have to meet. One is electric cars, in other words, converting diesel and petrol cars to electric. And the other one was the load that heat pumps would require. And so studies were done about how the electricity generation and supply network could be strengthened in order to meet these two new loads. So already back in 2007, the electrical utilities were thinking, what do we need to do in order to provide the energy for heat pumps? And here we are, 14 years later, setting ourselves targets which will really challenge Eurelectric.
Maybe we should look back at that report and see if it is accurate, as you just said. It seems that we need a lot of human capital also, and we have a few people in the audience, and I hope also online, that are looking at that. Educating young people, educating even old people, re-educating people from industries that are no longer needed in a carbon-constrained world. What would you tell to, let's start with the young people, young students, young apprentices, how should they orientate themselves in this carbon-constrained world?
Well, if we talk about heating and possibly cooling of buildings, the great advantage of heat pumps, of course, is they can both heat and cool. As part of our study back in 1998, I visited the United States. And that time, 23 years ago, the number of heat pumps sold was greater than 10 million heat pumps a year. Now, of course, it's much higher. Why? Because heat pumps can heat in the winter and cool, if necessary, in the summer. And so, therefore, it is a technology whose future lies ahead of it rather than behind it. It's a 200-year-old technology, but its future lies ahead. And therefore, it provides an opportunity for sustainable employment for the next 20, 30 years while we convert the majority of our heating systems or heating cooling systems to heat pumps. So if you're looking for sustainable employment for the next 20, 30 years, then become a heating engineer. I'll add one other thing. The greatest constraint on changing from gas to electrical heating using heat pumps is the fact that most engineers who install gas boilers regard themselves as gas engineers. Whereas in fact, if you talk to them, you say, why gas engineers? Why don't you become heating engineers? And they say, why should I become a heating engineer? Well, the answer is quite simple. One day you'll no longer be able to install gas boilers. And if you haven't learned how to install heat pumps, the answer is you're going to go out of business. And they look at you and say, well, this guy's crazy. I don't think I am. It would be interesting to know what the rest of your audience would say as well. So heating engineers we have to train who can, in future times, install heat pumps rather than gas boilers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rainer. There is an applause in the room. I don't know how well the microphones pick that up. Thank you for your foresight and for the time here today. I would have loved to have you on stage, but hopefully we can do that at one point in the future. Rainer and myself have agreed that we will do a podcast with him because I think there's so much more that we can learn from him and it would be interesting to talk further. I had good fun in preparing this short intervention this morning. I wish you a good day, Rainer, and we will continue with the program with a compatriot of yours. I'm also a big fan of electric cars, and I personally think that this idea that electric cars and electric heat pumps work very well together with a photovoltaic system and a battery is attractive. I have two announcements, and first of all, I want to apologize. It wasn't planned to have you slightly freezing, so please take the freedom and sit yourself a bit different. If you are too cold in the sunshine, it's a bit better. I don't know why we need additional ventilation here, as it was done by apparently by the building or by somebody in the organization. But of course, from a COVID perspective, this is part of the ventilation plan, so we do this for your safety. But I'm still sorry that you have to be a bit cold. Let me announce a few things. The food will be served in the food court, so in a minute, please move there. You can also run, that will make you feel a bit warmer. Everybody normally emits 60 watts in seated position. I understand that's not enough for the heat loss that we have in this building. Normally it's quite good. Let me talk to you about two things. One, we have live, should we do that now first? Yes. We have a live illustration of the sessions, despite the fact that not everybody is here on stage, but this will be also presented online. So you see here, Colleen, our illustrator, has a very quick pen and is summarizing what she's seeing on screen and around and in live. And you can access that or download it, what should I say? Access that online later. So we will also do summaries of all the other sessions. Then I'm delighted to talk to you about climate emergency and an action that EHPA is taking. A good friend and colleague of ours lives in Glasgow. You have all realized that in Glasgow there is also the COP26 taking place. And you have heard from Dan that heat pumps can also work in cars. And I happen to have now a car that has a heat pump for battery management and for climate comfort. And I will drive to Glasgow by electric car, by electric vehicle, visiting different players on site. In London, I will visit Octopus. In Cardiff, I hope to visit Zero. In Preston, I visit a renovation project that won the Heat Pump City of the Year award. And by the way, this building also won the Heat Pump City of the Year award. So we're getting more and more good buildings that are so impressive that they need to be highlighted. If you want to know more, below the flying pig there's a small illustration also explaining what heat pumps do in this building. And so then we will end up in Glasgow eventually, and we will have a small heat pump hub together with another person in this room, Sander Gehlen, who is here in the second row, and he will drive with his Tesla. I will drive not with a Tesla, but I have a heat pump already and you don't. So we can show that heat pumps are everywhere. And what I challenge you is actually the idea to do this was born from the idea not to fly. And then I thought if I make the trip, then there should be some sense in it. And then I drew a line and then I asked our members who has heat pump installations along that line. And actually that was quite easy. So next time maybe I go to Moscow and say who has heat pumps next to that line, and then I drive and visit them. I don't know, but it was really easy here, so I can say clearly heat pumps are everywhere and they can also be used in renovation. What else do I have to assign? Yes, we have not talked about cities much today. We will talk about cities at our next conference, Decarb Cities, on the 2nd and 3rd of March in Vienna, 2022. Do I need to do that? No. Sorry, now I was too fast. So can you please go back one slide? So that's happening and that's upcoming. If you have good city ideas that you want to talk about, solutions for cities, solutions for quarters, solutions for renovation of multifamily buildings, or you say this is not possible, let me talk about that, then please come to us, because the program is shaped as we speak, and I expect a similarly illustrious speaker set and attendance, because also the venue is very, very nice in Vienna. And then the last thing, next year we want to do the same on the same date pretty much. On the 28th of September 2022, we will have another heat pump forum that we dubbed tentatively Green, Clean and Affordable Heating. I think that's the new prerogative. I like this idea by Hannah, this campaign, let's make a petition and ask policymakers to give everybody the right for green, clean and affordable heating, and let's build in 1 year a communication campaign so that we can present the results to you next year. Having said that, please enjoy the lunch, and for the online audience the same, please enjoy the lunch. I hope you have a similar nice lunch as we have here, and we resume in 1 hour and 10 minutes at 13:30. Thank you for your attention so far, and see you soon back.